Okay, so a basic introduction to self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is like, it's not really an intellectual process. It's a process by which one is using what seems to be a tool to release identification with anything that is being held within consciousness that is limited, so that one can release. So the metaphor I always like to, I can use some different metaphors. What if everything that one had been programmed and thought or believed was released from one's consciousness, from all the aspects of the ego, all one's thoughts, one's memories, all one's habitual things one tends to hook into. For example, even like hooking into the body, where it's located, the stories around it, any kind of projection around it, every thought. What if all of this could be released? If all of it was released, would one be a nothing, not exist? Or would one experience that which is limitless, timeless, eternal, and beyond all the masks that one had been habitually identifying, thoughts, stories, the body, stories about the body, others? If one could release all of that, what would one be? Would one be a big nothing, or would one experience the ultimate truth? So self-inquiry is a practical methodology. I'm using these terms, but I have to use language. There's no right way of saying it. I call it disidentifying, letting go, releasing the habitual thoughts, the habitual memories, the habitual, even the relationship or the identity or the hooking into the body. Releasing on subtle levels, even one's fascination with time or the tracking of time. And releasing everything that's based in the realm of location or form. If one could let all of that go bit by bit or in one big go, what would be the experiencing of self, free of all of that? So self-inquiry is the practical mechanism by which we can, bit by bit or all in one go, release everything that's being held onto, everything that repeats, all habitual patterns, to experience what is left. Is there nothing left? Or does one actually awaken to the absolute truth of one's true nature, which was obscured by having all of these thoughts, being hooked into the body, being hooked into memories, being hooked into projections of dualistic relationships within the world? Is all of that actually blotting out the experiencing of one's true nature? And has one actually been unawake to the absolute truth of one's nature and one's whole life? And is it possible to awaken from this? And how does one awaken from this? And what does enlightenment mean? What do the enlightened teachers seem to talk about and describe? So self-inquiry is just one method. And it happens to be, because Muji is one of my teachers, happens to be one of the methods that I use and find useful. It's not the only method, but anyway, I like to but there's a few things I'll say just to help people to clear things. So when I say the word identification, it's like hooking in or holding on to something. That's what I mean. So it could be a thought. I might say stop identifying with the thought, I'm a victim. If that thought is, or I could say let it go, or I could say stop identifying with that thought. Or I could say, there's another way I could say, which would be what's observing that thought. Is there a detached observation of that thought? Now it could be that I'm referring to a thought, it could be to a physical sensation in the body, it could be to the experiencing of tiredness, it could be to the experiencing of confusion, So what's observing the confusion? What's observing the exhaustion? What's observing all the thoughts passing? So here's the thing. So the other thing with self-inquiry, and this can be used experientially with everyone in the room, with whatever they're holding on to right now, or anyone listening on the video. You see, whatever you're holding on now to will be the thing to use it on. For example, if you're holding on, if there's a thought, or if there are a collection of thoughts, could one let go of them? Could one let go of the identification to experience the nature of what one is, without these being hooked into identified? Now, with self-inquiry, of course, the key thing with, the key way I like to explain it, like I'm holding a watch. Now, I call the watch an object. Now, whatever you're holding on to, whether it be tiredness, whether it be a thought, whether it be a memory or an image, or if it's a feeling in the body, all of these things I would classify as objects which are being observed or witnessed. Now, why is that the case? Well, that would be the case because for anything to be observed, there must be an observer of it. You see, this is a very simple thing. Like, if people are observing this watch, to say that they are this watch would be an incorrect, I would say, in terms of our practice, would be incorrect, because actually this is an object and there is an observation of that which is prior to the watch. So, now a lot of people might believe they are the watch. Now, whatever you're holding in consciousness, whether it be a thought, whether it be a sensation in your body, whether it be an image, whether it be a feeling, it's just like this watch, you see. Now, if you're very interested, whatever you're holding in mind, a thought or a feeling in the body or whatever it is, or a location, now that is actually being observed. One isn't it. Because if it's a thought passing by, there is something observing it, which is not the thoughts passing by. If it is a feeling in the body, well, that comes and goes, and there is something observing it, which is not the feeling in the body right now. If there is a sense of location, well, something observes location, which is not location, which observes location, which is not in the realm. So that which observes location in space must be before location. So that which is before a thought is actually before thought. That which observes thought, the observer of thought is not actually a thought. The observer of the location is not actually a location. The observer of time passing is not in time. So these are experiential questions. They're not like think about them questions. With self-inquiry as well, for people who are new to self-inquiry, everything that I'm said will be used to think about what I've just said. But the solution to what I'm saying cannot be found by thinking about it, by definition. Because if you were trying to think like, what am I before my thoughts, you'd still be hooking into thoughts. So to get to the observer of thoughts, there is something which observes all thoughts passing, which is not in thought. To get beyond time, there is something which observes all locations, but is beyond location. These are experiential. Best way to say it is experiential prompts. Not really saying think about it, because I'm not really saying making a visualization of it, because it's before visualizations, before images, before memories, before thoughts. Now, what's the thing that goes on? Why do people have a lot of problem with this? And that is because of the level of interest, the level of identification, or the level of hooking in to, whether it be thoughts or the body or feelings in the body or memories or location, whatever is being heavily hooked into, identified with, has a lot of interest. So I'd like everyone who's listening to use this practically in what's going on in their experience. If it's a thought, Well, a little bit about thoughts, or a little bit about all objects, whether they be thoughts, feeling in the body, whether they be an image or a visualization or a location. All of these things seem to get stuck in one's consciousness if there's a lot of hooking or identification or special meaning projected onto them. So let's take a few examples. And you should, while I'm talking, please use this on anything that you're holding on to which is creating a sense of limit within you. Like, in experience with, let's take thoughts. Meaningless thoughts or uninteresting thoughts, they more or less, you don't really hardly recognize them passing and you don't hook into them. They don't block this sense of spaciousness. So if a thought went past, the cloud is white, it doesn't really block one's nature. But if it's like, I hate the tax man, and there's a lot of meaning or interest or story or hooking into that thought, then it seems to like stick, and one can't experience a more limitless reality. So actually, that's the thing. So what about, now the ego has certain ideas if you're new to this, like, well, certain things, you know, if you didn't hook into them, you'd still experience them. And I would give the example, let's say you're having a tired feeling in the body, let's say you're having lots of thoughts in the head. These are things that, like, a lot of people out there may say, oh, well, you'd always have to feel that. But actually, it's universal human experience. Like, I use this one, and everyone's experienced it in a different form. I was in this meeting many months ago, and I was talking, and then I said to everyone, can you hear the traffic noise outside? And then when I said that, people could hear the traffic noise, but they weren't able to hear it. They weren't listening to it, or it wasn't registering for them until I'd said that. So hence, when there's no interest in any type of object or form or thought or the physical body, or time or location, these things are no longer experienced. You see, so if there was no tracking or identification, or if one was in the non-attached observing, you know, it would be pretty still, it would be pretty peaceful wherever you go. If you're not in location, you wouldn't be experiencing location in this moment. There's something that observes location, which is not in location. And as you immerse yourself in that which emerges location is not in location, you start to experience, as an experience, your nature as locationless. As you are in that observes thoughts without hooking into any thought, you become that which is beyond thoughts as your identity and as your sense of self. So also, you know, feelings and location of the body. As you are in that, what is observing this? Is there a detached, uninterested observer of the physical body? Then you'll find that actually that is beyond all the limits and the experiencing of the limits of the body and feelings in the body. We're going into the realms of the limitless. So these are all practical things. One of the early traps, if you're a beginner, is to try and think about this and work this out in your head. But these are actually experiential questions. So that will serve as a quick introduction.